We've all been there. We feel like we bend over backwards for a particular student or family, and yet ultimately we are left feeling like our efforts were completely unappreciated or unacknowledged. This is one of the worst feelings in piano teacher life, as far as I'm concerned. The easiest solution to this problem is just to never offer exceptions to your studio policy or your boundaries or whatever. And if you can do that, then by all means, that's the way to do it. However, many of us acknowledge the fact that piano teaching is a very human business, and there are going to be occasions in which we find ourselves prompted to make an exception of some sort for a studio family with a really good reason. In these cases, I have one guiding question that I ask myself in order to determine whether or not I am willing to make an exception for this particular family. And I'm sharing it with you in today's Really Quick Piano Teacher Tips. Here's a truth of piano teacher life for you. People are going to ask you for exceptions to your studio policies. Someone is going to try to pull on your heartstrings and ask you for a break in the tuition. Someone's going to ask you if they could move their lesson this week to 8 o'clock p.m. even though it's actually scheduled for 4 o'clock p.m. These requests are going to be made. And if we're not careful about it, we're going to end up making ourselves miserable in the way that we deal with these requests. I'm going to be really honest with you here and say that teachers often end up feeling burned by families when it's really been our own decision to make the exception. When we decide to make an exception for a studio family, we need to be doing so without any other expectations of those parties involved. So, the number one question I ask myself when I am considering whether or not to make an exception is this. If I make this exception and the student would unexpectedly quit their lessons next month, will I feel frustrated? And will I feel like, after everything I did for you? If that answer is yes, I do not make the exception. It is actually not fair for me to agree to a decision and then hold expectations over someone else for that decision that I made myself. Now, if I play out the scenario in my brain and I decide that I would feel at peace with the exception if that studio family suddenly left me, then I'll go ahead and continue considering it. I just can't tell you enough that we cannot hold other people responsible for decisions that we make. So if I'm making a decision to extend a boundary or to make an exception to my studio policy, I have to do that free and clear in my own mind, no strings attached to anyone else. I talk about this very thing more in depth in episode 53 of the Beyond Measure podcast. I hope you'll check it out because I do firmly believe that this right here is a key component in living a happy piano teacher life. We all do too much magic in the world to deal with so many hurt feelings. So let's not bring more trouble on ourselves. Let's be exceedingly cautious in the exceptions we make. Thanks so much. My name's Christina Whitlock, and I will see you again next week for another Really Quick Piano Teacher Tips.